Amazing job.
English sounds wonderful.
That's true. Hello and welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us here tonight on another X live show here at CitizenGO. Today we're talking about something that receives very little public attention. Today we're talking about the United Nations. We're talking about UN, we're talking about global politics, we're talking about top-down politics, international organizations, international institutions, and the goals they're trying to achieve, and how this is affecting us on our daily lives. So specifically, why are we unraveling this subject today? We're talking about something that is receiving very little public attention in the last few days, and that could actually have enormous consequences for us and our families around the world. So over the next few months, governments will be coming together and deciding who will become the next Secretary General of the United Nations. And in fact, most people don't actually know this process is even happening. Yet this person will have enormous influence in directing where this organization is going, where the world's largest international organization will be going and will be headed for the years to come. So today we have an absolutely thrilling conversation with my amazing guest who I'll introduce in just a minute. And we're going to just unpack all the things related to the United Nations. So how UN influences life and family policy, how it affects our day-to-day lives, what's happening inside the organization. We have experts on the fields who've been inside the organization on a daily, on a monthly basis, and why this race for the next Secretary General actually matters. And adding on to that, why so many people are paying attention to one candidate in particular. So we have two fantastic guests with us today, which I would love to introduce right away. Rocío D'Angelo joins us from Argentina. Rocío is a global campaigner here at CitizenGO. She has represented CitizenGO at the United Nations, at the UN Human Rights Council, at the Organization of American States, and numerous international forums over the last few years. Rocío, it's lovely to have you on. It's great to be with you. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Sebas. Thank you, everyone, joining us today. And thank you also, Chris, for joining us. It's a pleasure being here. I'm more than eager to unpack with you everything related to Michelle Bachelet's candidacy and the election of the next Secretary General.
It's going to be great. And joining us with as well is Chris Elston, known around the world as Billboard Chris, a great friend of CitizenGO. Chris has become known around the world for standing up for children's rights, against the use of puberty blockers, against the indoctrination of gender ideology and irreversible medical interventions on children. Chris, it's wonderful to see you again. Wonderful to have you on. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. We are going to stop this election of the socialist leader and former president of Chile, former president of UN Women and of the Human Rights Council. She's a critical Marxist. She's a radical leftist. She would be a disaster for the world. So we're going to make sure she doesn't get elected as the next Secretary General. Absolutely.
And I'm excited to unpack all these issues with you two here, because I think there's so much we can bring to the table, so much we can discuss. Let's try and get as much as we can into the hour. So let me just give a quick intro into what's going on. So tonight we're talking about something that could affect us all. And I think it's important here to add that when most people hear the words United Nations, it's very easy to think that they picture peacekeepers, humanitarian aid, very noble causes, diplomats giving speeches, whatever it may be. But I think it's important here to highlight that the UN is much more than that. It really ends up shaping international standards. It's influencing governments on a daily basis. It's publishing recommendations in school books that affect education, healthcare, family policy, whatever it may be. And the worst of all is that in many countries, they have the ultimate say as to what constitute as human rights. And over the years, the United Nations has increasingly promoted very contested political and social agendas on issues like abortion and gender ideology specifically, and often in very sneaky ways, and often in ways that many governments and citizens have never ever voted for. So one thing is undeniable: the United Nations has definitely more influence than we think, and whenever an institution of that caliber has that much influence, in this case the largest organization in the world, who leads it matters most. And I think that's why tonight is so important. That's why the conversations we're going to have tonight are so important, because behind closed doors, governments have begun the process of choosing this next Secretary General. And this person will set the tone, the priorities, the direction of the organization in years to come. And as we know, the organization hasn't been going in a good direction in the first place in the last 10 years. So most people don't know this process is happening. Tonight, let's really dig deep, get into it. We're going to explain what is happening, how this unusual selection process works, and why one of the candidates in particular, Michelle Bachelet, has sparked controversy and a heated international debate. So let me throw it on to you, Rocío, for the moment, and ask you why in recent years, I know together you and I have spent a lot of time inside the United Nations institutions, inside different UN conferences, and the direction the UN is going is already flawed when it comes to family policy, when it comes to life and family values. And my question here is, why has the UN become, as an international organization which should seek the best for all, why has it become an enemy of life and family in recent years as an international organization? And what do you see from the last years that has been flawed as inside the UN?
Thank you, Sebastián. Yes, as you said, everything that the United Nations decides reaches our kitchens, reaches our daily lives. And the person who runs it is important, because he's the one who is going to set the agenda for every UN agency. That person, the Secretary General, also decides which programs get funded in which countries, and basically decides what is called a human right and what is called a violation to human rights. We both have been at the CSW, the Commission of the Status of the Women. We've been at the UN Human Rights Council, and we can say that we can see how international abortion lobbies are putting money. George Soros, everyone is putting money to turn this agenda, or to take this Agenda 2030 into country level. So we've seen direct attacks on family, on life. Even now, in the latest CSW, countries which were debating what is defined, or which is the definition of gender, right? If gender is based on biological sex, or gender is whatever you want gender to be. So basically, there is a lobby behind the UN. There is a lobby funded by Soros with billions of dollars, and they want to set their agenda and impose that agenda into our countries.
Absolutely, and I think exactly that. It's become a recent obsession in recent UN documents and recent UN conferences, this idea of gender confusion, which I sometimes like to call it. And I want to bring in Chris here, who definitely knows the subject, I think, better than anyone here when it comes to gender ideology, puberty blockers, and where is this push coming from? Rocío, you mentioned the lobby behind it. I think that's definitely part of it. But where is this push coming from? And it's reaching, we know it's reaching national level. I know you're experiencing it over there in Canada at a massive frequency, at a massive speed, Chris. But where is it coming from initially, and what's driving this perverse movement?
That's such a big question. The short answer is it's coming from 100 directions, one of which, of course, is the United Nations. Michelle Bachelet, when she was High Commissioner of the UN Human Rights Council, she's the one who pushed for comprehensive sex education, or CSE. This is radical gender theory. This is teaching queer theory to kindergartners, essentially. She even wanted this to go to children as young as 4 years old. And so the UN is one outlet for this, but this is funded by all of the leftist governments. This is pushed by all of the universities who today all push critical theory, critical Marxism. And this is essentially the mutation of the original Marxism, which focused on economic matters. And it extends that out to every field of life. So gender, sex, ethnicity, etc. These people believe that we live in a world of oppressors and oppressed, of traditional groups who dominated society, the patriarchy, capitalism. All of these things are connected. And in all of our universities across the world, this ideology is taught to our young people who become the human rights workers in companies. They become the professors, they become the social workers and the therapists and the teachers. And so this cycle continues. And we have millions of people who are true believers in what are really these neo-Marxist philosophies. And she's one of them. She ran the Socialist Party in Chile. She was elected to 2 terms. You can't have consecutive terms in Chile, but she was elected to 1 term. And then as soon as she could run again, she won again. Fortunately, they finally have a conservative party in Chile, as we've seen this shift around the world. But she's been pushing this radical agenda through every position she's been in, including at UN Women and as the High Commissioner for the UN Human Rights Council. And so that is a very important place that we need to target. And it's one of these things that nobody talks about because it's boring. Who wants to talk about the United Nations Human Rights Council or the weird agendas they're pushing behind closed doors? But it's important we do focus on it because they have so much influence at all of these meetings around the world. They have so much influence with the politicians in every country in the world. And you get things like in the Philippines, which is a 95% Catholic country, where their parliament passed universally, unanimously, this comprehensive sex education installation into all of their schools. They don't even really understand what they're voting for, but they put a euphemistic term on all of these ideas. And so we just have to fight this from every angle possible. And it is very important to get the most conservative person possible elected to the UN Secretary General position because they have so much influence.
Absolutely. And it's not just that. I like what you mentioned about it being boring because it's something that working inside within the UN internally, we come to terms with the documents that come up with before certain UN conferences like the Commission on the Status of Women, and you see the sneaky language behind it. So not only is boring, but it's there to catch you out, and many delegations are unable to comprehend where this text is or where this language is trying to drive. What's the objective of this language? It's very ambiguous language, which then seeks to then confuse and be able to push certain agendas, certain ideas, which are not in line with what most countries think. I mean, most countries in the world don't agree that a man can become a woman and a woman become a man. I mean, it's simple as that. However, as a global institution, the UN is managing and continues to try to sneak these things in the most sly and slick way, and I think that's something that needs to be brought to light, and that's part of the work we do. But also something we've got to be careful because it's ambiguous language in the UN, the complexity of the UN that slowly pushes these texts through, and they end up, before you know it, they end up in national governments for a vote, and no citizen has ever heard of what texts have been coming out from the UN. So I think that's very key, and the gender confusion.
Sebastián, can I just add one thing real quick?
Yeah, of course.
It's no coincidence that all around the world, around 2015, 2016, this is when gender ideology started infiltrating all of our governments, all of our school systems, everywhere. I mean, they're even trying to push this into Africa. Good luck pushing gender ideology in some of these African countries, but that doesn't stop them from trying.
But they're still trying, exactly.
And we have to understand there are thousands of well-funded activists, funded in many cases by the UN, who are pushing this in every country in the world. It's not a coincidence that these bills all spring up that look basically identical in Australia, Canada, the UAE, Spain, Portugal, Chile, wherever. This is part of, and I don't like using the word an agenda because it sounds conspiratorial, but this does come from the top. It is part of a UN agenda, and they have a ton of support for it, and they have support from every single leftist government in the world. We who speak common sense, who are now called the radical far right, when you're just a normal person, we are vastly outnumbered. and we don't have any real money behind us as well. So I do want to just say thank you to CitizenGO for all you do, and to all of my followers. I would love it if you guys could support them. But I believe we have a track record of Michelle Bachelet we should probably look at, and we have a graphic about that maybe we can bring up and discuss this woman a little more.
Absolutely, yeah. Let's dive into Bachelet's record and what really we're looking at here. I think what you said is key. Just again, just a parentheses on the funding. We know Soros. Talking about Michelle Bachelet, Soros has picked his candidate. Can you guess who it is, Chris?
I'm going to guess Michelle Bachelet, because she's the only avowed socialist, even though others are. She's the only one who proudly calls herself that, and he's going to go as far left as possible.
100% correct. So there you go. So it's already connecting the dots and also following the money. And we've spoken about the financing behind these agendas and all these objectives that the UN is trying to achieve in recent years. So let's dig deep. I mean, I think I've said at the beginning, but just to make it crystal clear, we've got the Secretary General term has come to an end, and now there is a race for the next candidate, who is set to start on the 1st of January 2027. Now, there's numerous candidates in the field. There's numerous candidates who have a chance of getting picked. There's around 7 to 8 right now, and they keep coming and going. So it's not a set race. It's not a normal electoral process, which we're usually familiar with. In fact, it's quite different. It's quite peculiar in the way it works. However, that being said, Michelle Bachelet is still one of the leading candidates. And let's go into, I want to bring also Rocío's expertise here. Rocío is an expert in Latin American affairs and everything that's been going on in the Latin American region in the last few years. She can definitely give some big insights as to how Michelle Bachelet has changed Chile. From what I know, Chile used to be one of the most conservative countries in Latin America. However, during her presidency, this literally completely fell apart. This was an orchestrated attempt to tear this conservatism, tear this Christian nation apart. So, Rocío, what do you see in mirrored in her candidacy, in her presidency, in the last term that she had in Chile, and as a candidate in the UN race for Secretary General?
Okay, thank you, Sebas. Just to mention here, to add something to what you said before, which is she's the front runner to be the next Secretary General. This is happening right now for the people listening to us. Just today, the straw polls started, which is the rounds to vote who will be the next Secretary General. It doesn't conclude now. We still have till September, which is the UN General Assembly, to keep putting pressure. So before entering into Michelle Bachelet's record and everything that she has done in Chile and what she wants to push as a global level now, before we go into that, just ask people to sign the petition to stop her candidacy. And as you, Seba, said before, there are many candidates. She's the favorite. Of course, she's been funded by Soros, and all the feminist lobbies are putting pressure on that and claiming that it's time for a woman to be Secretary General. And it's really a sad thing for them to claim, because it is really women and girls who will pay the price for it. Because as you can see in the screen, she has quite a record. In Chile, well, as you know, Chile was governed by a socialist and communist government till March this year by Boric, and it was that government the one who proposed Michelle Bachelet as a candidate, and the newly elected government from cast now in Chile withdraw her proposal. So Chile is no longer supporting her candidacy, which is crazy. It's the first time in history that this is happening. And if Chile rejected her, that says something about her.
Yeah,
so first of all,
backing of her own country.
yeah, her own country is not backing her. So that's crazy. So as you can see, she was the one who ordered the free distribution of the morning after pill without parents' consent for children and girls starting at the age of 14. And she even, as Chris mentioned before, even when she was the UN Human Rights Chief, she said that abortion is firmly rooted in international human rights. And this happens when, with the ruling, the Dobbs ruling, and she rejected that, and she claimed that abortion is firmly rooted in international human rights. So if she says that, imagine what she wants to do once she gets the UN top job. She will be one of the most aggressive feminists in power if she gets it. And basically, if she considers abortion as a human right, then the countries protecting the unborn are countries violating a human right. So that's really it's nonsense, of course.
And I think about the human rights issue, I think that's key here. I think, Rocío, we've experienced in the past few years that the main endeavor, the main goal in the last 5, 6, 7 years of the UN has been to slowly come closer and closer to achieving that,
Exactly.
an introduction of abortion as an international human right, as a recognized UN human rights. And they've done that through different means, through different agencies, through different wording, through different language. And it's taking them time, of course, because of the work, organizations like ours are doing really on the ground and before these documents come out. But really, we know that it is the endeavor, it's the main goal of the United Nations. So if she has already come out so prominently to talk about abortion as an international human right, we know that Guterres perhaps was not so vociferous on social issues, on abortion, on gender ideology, and we've still suffered so much under the UN in the last few years. So just imagine how bad it can be under Bachelet. What do you think, Chris?
Yes, I mean, you can see here, as President of Chile, through the Education Ministry, they mandated that LGBTI, and we could add some letters to that, but she ordered that these materials were put into preschool. Excuse me, for kids starting as young as 4. She made sex education mandatory in high schools. As UN Human Rights Council High Commissioner, she demanded that self-identification be mandated worldwide. So if any man says he's a woman, he's a woman.
Yep.
She has tweeted out the hashtag trans women are women. So these people are as radical as it gets. And I think sometimes we think we're winning this war on wokeism, but we're really only winning it during this term of President Trump in the United States, because the rest of the world hasn't changed a bit. And all of these global bodies are still pushing it. So it's going to take a lot more than just one country. And yes, the US is by far and away the most powerful country in the world. They have a tremendous amount of influence. I will use whatever influence I have in the United States. I have a few connections, even though I'm Canadian, but I'll use whatever influence I have to make sure the United States vetoes her appointment if she does get elected. But this is not someone, and there are many people right along with her that we can have running the most important international body in the world, because she's going to continue to radicalize our kids. And we all know if you can get to the kids, that's how you change the culture, and that's what they're trying to do.
Absolutely. And I think that's exactly the approach that we've seen in the past, and the approach that the UN actually looks to do. It starts with schools, it starts with children, and then it works its way up. And it's key here that the UN has centralized its power in recent years. They tried to become more top down and more aggressively top down in whatever way possible. But here, just staying on her track record a little bit more, just to kind of add to this, I think, I mean, correct me maybe if I'm wrong, Rocío, but I think she's radicalized even more in the last few years in the lead up to becoming a Secretary General candidate compared to her time as President of Chile. Am I correct? Because from what I dug deep and researched into what really she promotes now, then it's almost like she's doubled down and become more extreme in the last few months. Is that possible, Rocío?
Yeah, exactly. As you can see, in 2017, well, Chile had a total ban on abortion, and she opened the doors for legalizing abortion on 3 grounds. So it wasn't a total abortion, but only legalizing it on these 3 grounds. And then she started, she ended her mandate, and she started like introducing these gender law and help fast tracking these gender laws. But as entering into the international arena as a High Commissioner for Human Rights, she started demanding abortion as a human right, as we previously said. She condemned the overturning of Roe versus Wade. And one interesting fact about her is that she was basically the founder of UN Women, right? She was the first, let's say, the first president of UN Women, which is a UN agency, which is the most radical agency.
Absolutely.
Used by these pro-abortion lobbies to, exactly as we said before, to put pressure on countries to legalize abortion, to legalize the puberty blockers, and to impose all these 2030 agenda on our countries. So yeah, totally, she has radicalized, and you can see on her latest records.
And UN Women is the agency that presents the first draft of the Commission on the Status of Women, if I'm not mistaken. UN Women is the most, let's say, is the platform the feminist lobby uses to enter the UN system and to be able to start changing text and push for their goals. And I think as well, it's what I've been seeing as well in recent documents. It was in the Summit for Human Development. I think it was in recent Commission on the Status of Women, in recent UN conferences. It's now not only recognizing abortion as international human rights under the UN, which everyone needs to kind of abide to, but now it's also arguing that restrictions and barriers to abortion, which means pro-lifers or legal barriers or whatever barriers there may be to abortion, is now what they're trying to do is make it become a violation of women's rights. So you're in violation of human rights if you're a pro-lifer, and that could be verbally as well. I've seen documents where they try to do it verbally, that people pro-life stances should be condemned and prosecuted. So I think this is very dangerous, the extent to which we can see this going, and the extent to which her radical approach can manifest itself in the next term at the United Nations. I want to jump in here.
Just add something here. You mentioned about pro-life voices being condemned and criminalized. I know for sure that we are going to talk about censorship in just a few minutes. But just to add here that we clearly see how the UN as a machinery is condemning and criminalizing our voices, because now they are debating, and we already launched a campaign on that. They are debating a new pact for crimes against humanity, right? So basically the UN is debating what is going to be considered a crime against humanity in the future, and it's like a jail that is being built on us, right? Because if we have on one side Michelle Bachelet saying that protecting the unborn is a violation to human rights, and then we have the pact for crimes against humanity, which is what we've been campaigning against in the past. Well, we have all the tools to condemn us and to silence us, and they've already done it. Imagine what will happen if she gets the position, right? So that's crazy. That's terrible. That's why we have to stop her.
Yeah, and here we have some of her own words in recent years. She wants to ensure all children have access to comprehensive sexuality education. The CSE topic is huge. I mean, we've seen how radical. I've seen brochures from UNICEF, from different UN agencies that come out. These are extreme, sometimes even pornographic magazines, pornographic handouts, leaflets that end up in schools in Africa and Uganda and in different places around the world. This is insane what's being promoted by CSE, under CSE, by the UN across the world. Then we've got having trans people's gender recognized based on self-identification and human rights in every country of the world. So she's not hiding it, that she wants to extend and transcend this agenda across the nations, across the world. And then back in 22, we've got access to safe, legal, and effective abortion should be firmly rooted in international human rights law. So basically, everything we've mentioned in these last few minutes about her track record, I think she's not even hiding it, is she, Chris?
No, about 6 years ago, I remember on International Women's Day, the account for UN Women put out a tweet saying, "Happy International Women's Day to all women," spelled WOMXN, Womexin, because you have to, of course, include all men who also want to be considered women. And this is coming from the most prestigious women's body in the world. And we've mentioned a few times today, calling her a feminist, which she is. And I just want to make one tiny clarification. There will be some feminists who say she's not a feminist, and there are people who call themselves today radical feminists who agree with us that gender identities don't exist and men can't be women and they shouldn't be coming into women's spaces and rape shelters and prisons and sports, etc. But 95% of feminists out there today are the Michelle Bachelet type of feminist. This is what they're all taught in university. It's all this radical leftism, this critical theory, again, as I discussed earlier. And these aren't just beliefs for them. They believe that they need to engage in really what is an emancipatory struggle. They have to actively fight back against all of these oppressive forces that are keeping them down. So when you are training millions of people into this ideology and also turning them into activists who, for them, instead of a conservative or Christian going to church on Sunday, for them, church is protest and it's activism, and it's joining the school boards and getting on all of these municipal councils, etc. We end up with a world which is what we have today, where basically every single important institution in the world is dominated by leftism. So we have this massive job ahead of us. But once again, if we can get a more normal person elected to UN Secretary General and keep people like Michelle Bachelet out, that is such an important step in trying to restore sanity throughout some of our institutions. Because as long as these most premier institutions in our world are pushing this radicalism, it's never going to go away, because they have so many avenues into our universities, etc., that we can't touch. So yes, she is as radical as they come. She is a Marxist. She ran the Socialist Party in Chile. And she is, of all the current people nominated, she's the one we need to stop most of all.
Absolutely. And you watching our live right now, supporting us, following what we do, everyone watching, I want to send out that you can have your impact too. You can go to vetobachelet.com, sign the CitizenGO petition, which will go out to the biggest decision makers of this next Secretary General race. And we are really looking to have a massive influence in the upcoming months to stop Bachelet from coming anywhere near the presidency or the Secretary General position at the United Nations. That's vetobachelet.com. Get on, sign the petition, join the fight, see what's going on, because it's going to be a tight race. It's going to be interesting. There's already been heated debates actually moving forward. So vetobachelet.com. Thank you for everyone watching. So I want to move into the censorship issue, which I think this is incredible, because it's something all three of us here, I think, suffer on a very frequent basis. Chris, perhaps you on a different level, but from different angles, of course, because it's what we do. I mean, it's what we do. At the end of the day, what we do is we know what we're getting into. And we know who we're up against, and we know it's a censorship machine. It's a globalist censorship machine, which doesn't want to hear our voice, which our voice is always on the defensive. But that doesn't matter, because we keep fighting. So on this issue specifically, my dear colleague Rocío, and she'll tell you all about it, was censored in real time at the United Nations Human Rights Council on this issue. Rocío, can you tell us a little bit what happened there? You were giving a speech, as we usually do. I mean, we perfectly have the right to give an intervention at every UN Human Rights Council. And what happened in your situation when you mentioned Bachelet?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Sebas. Well, in June, I was invited to speak at the UN Human Rights Council, questioning exactly Michelle Bachelet's candidacy as we are talking now. I delivered a speech which was pre-recorded because it was a virtual speech, and it was at the panel which was called Women in Diplomacy. And I started questioning why a radical feminist, of course, not questioning Michelle as a person, but questioning her political stance. Why a feminist with an open, how to say it, like openly rooting for these, yes, for this law, was a candidate, like someone who should be in a global level, representing all voices. So I question exactly that, and I wasn't able to finish my my speech. I was literally cut. My mic was cut.
They switched your microphone off.
Yeah. They cut the video, switch it off. The president of the panel said that the topic had nothing to do with women in diplomacy, like nonsensical, because I mean I was talking about a woman who wants to be the Secretary General, right?
Exactly.
So
if that's not women in diplomacy, I don't know what is.
Yeah, I don't know what is exactly. And then the most hypocritical thing, like from my side, was like they were talking about women in diplomacy. They say they want to represent women, and they silence me. Like, you know which women they want to represent. If you are a pro-family, pro-life women, if you dissent to Michelle Bachelet or the Agenda 2030, or if you dissent to the UN, even though you're a woman, they're gonna silence you. So that was like terrible. Of course, we started claiming that and sharing that on social media. Of course, no one said anything. All the rest of the members in the room agreed to that, agreed to my microphone being cut. And the other hypocritical thing was that after me, there were two more people who were also talking about this, about the candidacy of Michelle Bachelet, and they were left, like they had an open mic to talk about that, and they were boosting and saying that a woman should be elected. It's time for a woman to be the next Secretary General. So again, which women are allowed to talk at the UN? If you're a pro-life, you are not.
Exactly. So, I think it's funny you say that, because it's always the same story. It's like they get even more angry when it comes from a woman. When that position comes from, it's like it angers them even more. But it's incredible on the one side, and on the other hand, it's like, yeah, I mean, it's the UN has been on our case for the last few years. I mean, that's something that we've been talking about quite a bit in the last few months. They've censored us in several different conferences. The Commission on Status of Women was one of them recently. I think myself and one colleague, Franco Matas, were banned from attending this year as well, for the same reason, for the simple reason of standing up to against abortion and gender ideology. And I think they're tightening the grip on censorship as a whole. I think I mentioned at the beginning that in more documents they are coming for the pro-life voice. They're coming for the, let's say, the sanity voice, the sane voice on that, you know, men are men, women are women. They need to tackle it. They need to tackle it, and we're seeing it that we're on the receiving end of that, which doesn't stop us. It doesn't stop us, but I think it's another reason why this was before Bachelet. So it's another reason why things can worsen very much in the next few years if Michelle Bachelet does end up being Secretary General. And that's why I encourage everyone to go to vetobachelet.com and sign the petition at CitizenGO. Chris, censorship, gender ideology, what do you see? Why are people so scared of hearing the truth? Why are they possessed with this idea that with this lie, basically, with this lie, which is so detrimental to children, to the most vulnerable in our society?
These people are indoctrinated to believe that they're revolutionaries battling evil. They're indoctrinated. What can I say? They see me standing on the street with a sign that says children cannot consent to puberty blockers, which is really a rather anodyne statement. There's nothing outrageous in there.
Yeah.
And they lose their minds because for them, any opposition has to be stomped out. And so the left has always been known for using violence to silence. That happens to me all the time, especially in Canada more than any other country. If I go out on the streets of Vancouver, British Columbia right now, starting at maybe 4 p.m., which is usually a good time to do what I do, every few hours, I've got someone either attacking me personally or trying to destroy my equipment. I went to Spain. I was there with, I think, your parent organization, Hazte Oír, which literally means make yourself heard, I believe, which is a wonderful name for a nonprofit organization. But I was there at an event, and I went out into the town square at Puerta del Sol, and I was there for just a couple minutes. I recorded a 1-minute intro, and as I was finishing my recording, the police rolled up and told me I couldn't do this. And they violated my rights. They took my phones. They took me to the police station. They held me there. I had no idea what was going on. I had to use my watch to contact friends of mine who got lawyers there. But this is just typical censorship that happens to people expressing sensible views. If I was there wearing a keffiyeh and protesting for Hamas, there's not a chance they would have arrested me. But because my message was simply children cannot consent to puberty blockers, they felt they had the right to just try to get rid of me. No charges or anything, but this is what they do. It's the process, which is the punishment. They just get you out of the town square. So this happens all over the place. I spoke at the European Parliament. When was that? Last December, and also earlier in the year. And the first time I spoke there, I went out on the streets of Brussels. And I'm completely within my rights to do what I do throughout the European Union. Freedom of expression is guaranteed according to the European Charter on Human Rights. And it's guaranteed according to the Belgian Constitution as well. But once again, I was put in jail along with a friend of mine, Lois Miller from ADF International. And that's after we called the police because we were being so harassed, especially Lois. And they told me to take my sign off and leave, and I refused. So I was put in jail, strip searched, all that. Once again, no charges because they're violating their own laws. They just can't stomach that someone's out there having these conversations. But how do we reach people on the street? How do we reach the normies in society, the people who aren't in our corner of the internet? We have to go outside. We have to get out onto the streets, and we have to have these civil, calm conversations. And so as far as I'm concerned, the more they try to censor me, the better, because I just always make it backfire, and it does. And we are winning. And on this one issue of gender ideology, we are winning more than we have with any other issue, really since the sexual revolution began in the 1960s. Leftists have been winning on every single issue, continually pushing the Overton window further left. And this is the one area where we're taking it back. And so they hate it. And so they're going to fight tooth and nail to stop us. But they're going to lose because they have all the money, but we have something they don't have. We have the truth. And the truth spreads for free. And we have public support. I get 90% support. You can't go outside and talk to 100 parents. You're not going to find a lot who think that boys can be girls and girls can be boys. What you are going to find a lot of is outraged parents who hate what's going on in the school system and are even pulling their kids out of the school system and homeschooling them more and more because of people like Michelle Bachelet that are pushing comprehensive sex education into our schools, where starting in kindergarten or even preschool, like she did in her own country of Chile, they start teaching gender identity. So we just got to keep the pedal down. Don't worry about the censorship. Stay calm. Always expose their censorship, because one conversation at a time is how we're going to end this, and we are.
Absolutely. And I think it's also important to stay together in the movement that we're working in. Like you said, I'm sure there's hundreds of thousands of parents that are concerned with how radical these things have got. And I mean, we've got different countries in worse situations than others, of course. I mean, the situation varies across the world, but we have exactly that. We have a movement of people who share the same values, people who care. And I think that's what we really need to lean on going forward. And I think that's key, and really, really well said, Chris. I think that brings some inspiration and some motivation to the battle, because sometimes it's not easy out there. Sometimes it's dark within the within the halls of the UN, especially. But
well, when you push against any status quo throughout history, look at anything that has become the status quo, anything that has become the norm, and they've normalized this very quickly. Anytime you push back, of course, you're going to get pushback of your own. Yeah. Anytime you push the truth against a lie, you're going to get pushback. And people throughout history get killed. They get put in prison. But are we going to leave a society for our children that is pushing all of this nonsense, that is harming kids, that is sterilizing children, that is turning them into anorgasmic lifelong pharmaceutical patients? We cannot allow this to continue. And I would just say, as a piece of advice to everyone watching this, yes, it's important to talk online. And a lot of us will be speaking on social media. We comment on social media. And that's really the only way we can really reach out to people, because most aren't going to do what I do and go outside. But it's important, I think, to ignore the radicals. There is no point trying to change their mind. They're not going to change the mind. They don't want to change their mind. And that's the first prerequisite for someone changing their mind. Our job is to reach the normies and to reach them with positive language. Because when you just complain about things all the time, you're not going to build a big following. You'll find a bunch of complainers. But those aren't the type of people who change society. You have to have positive messaging. So the positive messaging is, as I've said a million times, our children are beautiful just as they are. They don't need drugs or scalpels. There's no right or wrong way. There's no right or wrong way to be a girl or a boy. Gender ideology teaches that if a girl likes playing with toy trucks and hates dresses and wants to have short hair, gender ideology literally teaches that she might be a boy.
Exactly.
It's ridiculous. And as soon as you start talking about it in these common terms, everybody understands. And even the leftists, they can't argue with you. So with them, just ask them questions, get them to define what they actually believe in. Because again, they're not all evil, they're just indoctrinated and they've absorbed what they've been taught. So you have to employ the Socratic method of debate like Socrates invented, which really isn't that complicated. You just ask them questions. You don't even have to say a thing. And they're going to realize on their own that they don't know anything. But really focus your efforts on just reaching the normies in society.
Yeah,
exactly. Can I mention something here? I totally agree with you, Chris. We're not gonna, and that's the reason why we're also launching this campaign, right? We're not gonna convince radicals. We don't want to change their minds, really. We know for sure that the UN is broken. I've seen that there are some people in the comments asking who should be then the next Secretary General. That is really not a safe option. We know that the UN is broken. We are not here to fix it. We're not gonna defend the UN. We know that it's a machinery that they want to that cut the microphone of the pro-lifers. We know that they want to impose an agenda on us. We're just launching this campaign to expose the radicals, to expose what they want to do, to expose what they want to normalize. So totally agree with you. And that's why we have to continue exposing on social media, signing the petition. And for everyone here, I will remind the web domain, which is Veto-Bachelet.com. And the petition is important because with all the signatures, we're going to be next week in New York to submit these signatures, to deliver the signatures to the ones voting the next Secretary General. And we do have a saying. They can cut our microphone, but we do have a saying, and we can put pressure on the ones electing the next Secretary General.
Absolutely. I love that, what you said, Rocío, about the candidates. Yes, exactly. It's not, I mean, we're not the ones voting to start off with. It's not an election in our country, but we're not there to tell you which candidate is better than others. I mean, we're there to expose the radicalism behind one or more, perhaps even, but one that we deem absolutely detrimental to the future of the UN. And we know it from firsthand, having suffered these past few years, censorship, attacks, and all the difficult challenges we've had within the United Nations. And I think what you said, Rocío, again brings us to the next topic here, and a bit kind of closing off exactly where we stand, where things are right now. You will be in New York next week, bringing the signatures of over 200,000 people who have signed a petition. If you haven't signed it already, please jump on now, sign Veto-Bachelet.com. And what's taking place right now is exactly that. It's a straw poll process across the Security Council. But we have a huge say in this, and I'll explain why. We have a huge say in this because it requires 1 of the permanent members of the Security Council, so that means the United States, France, Russia, China, or the UK, and it will be the US most likely who has already spoken against Michelle Bachelet as a candidate. They're already not too happy with her track record, everything we've unraveled here in this conversation and beyond. And we have a huge chance to push the US administration to veto her, and that should do the job. And it won't be easy. Nothing's easy in these kind of massive platforms. I mean, we know she's Soros funded. We know she's getting funding from other agencies, and the UN itself is quite happy with her as a candidate. But I think we will take the petition to the US administration, to the decision makers around the Security Council in order to close out this vote. This is not what the people want, but this is also not what the majority of member states want, what the majority of African countries or of Asian countries want, of conservative countries around the world. They do not want a radical feminist abortionist in the Security Council, in the Secretary General position. So I think that's key here. So we'll be taking the position. Rocío, you'll be there, right, on the ground to take those signatures.
Yeah, exactly. We've run already 2 petitions asking people to sign the petition, to put pressure on their delegates at the UN, the permanent missions at the UN. And as you said before, it's only a veto. What we need, right, is a candidacy is taken down when the candidacy has a veto. And we're expecting the United States to veto her. In fact, there are members of the US Congress who have formally demanded Rubio's veto against Bachelet, calling her a pro-abortion zealot. And we also have, of course, the Chile's government withdrawing her nomination, which is also a very strong stance on this. And although Michelle Bachelet is a favorite, these 2 strong positions by the United States, by Chile, I assume and I expect Argentina, which is my home country, also to have a say on these and to, of course, not support her. So I think that most of the conservative countries are already aware of this. It's not going to be easy, though. We still have to continue putting pressure to our delegations at the UN, and that's why CitizenGO. And I'm gonna be in New York next week, and part of the team gonna be there too. We're gonna do a massive stand in Times Square with Michelle Bachelet's cardboard figures, with the green handkerchief. The green handkerchief, which is connected to her pro-abortion stance,
especially in Latin America.
Yeah, especially in Latin America, exactly. And we're also going to deliver these signatures to the different delegations, which is, the permanent mission, which is just in time, because we've seen that today the troubles started. So, yeah, so your signature is going to reach decision makers. So that's why we need to have a huge amount of signatures. And let me remind people here also to sign in vetobachelet.com.
I'm seeing some awesome comments coming in. People already signing the petition. From all around the world.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for everyone watching, everyone engaged, everyone mobilizing in this cause. Vetobachelet.com. And we've got the General Assembly coming up, the UN General Assembly every September. That's going to be a key platform where candidates will kind of solidify their positions, solidify their campaigns, and looking to get, let's say, nominated within the end of September, moving into October, where we should already be looking at having a decision on the cards, a candidate on the cards. So that brings us slowly to the end of our live, of our podcast, of our conversation. Thank you for everyone watching. Chris, I want to give you the floor, last few words. Where do you see this going? What do you expect will happen? How positive are you? What are your final thoughts on all this that we've unpacked today and moving forward?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for all the work you guys do. And I don't know if a lot of my followers know CitizenGO, they're doing so much work internationally. And they do these petitions all the time, hundreds of thousands, millions of people signing them. And they're creating awareness about all of these issues all across the globe. And there aren't many international organizations doing that at all. So please do support them. But what I think is going to end up happening, I do think, especially with more awareness being created, which is primarily down to you guys, I do think the US will probably veto her nomination if she wins it. They can't have her getting in there. So thank goodness they're a permanent member of the Security Council. But it's still important we raise awareness about these issues because so many of these candidates push this. So what happens is if someone like her gets vetoed, this has an effect on all the other candidates too, because they want to win. And it has a moderating influence on everyone. And so what we saw when she was president in Chile, she did what she could on abortion to push it through. She pushed it through in 3 different areas. But she couldn't do more because people of Chile don't support that. And you can only do so much in a place that's very socially conservative when it comes to abortion like Chile. But as soon as she got into other positions, she's pushing as much as she possibly can. So with these radical leftists, it's not that they want a revolution. They want to be in a perpetual state of revolution. It's always the next thing coming. So we have to do what we can to stem that tide and get as moderate an individual as we can. But I'm confident that we will stop her, but it's important we keep fighting because as soon as you take your foot off the gas pedal, bad things happen. So thank you guys for doing all you do.
Thank you, Chris. Absolutely. It's always what more can they get? That's why we've got to be ready. We've got to be always alert and expose basically what their agenda is. Show it to the people because people do not see what these endeavors are, what these goals are. And yeah, like once again, I encourage everyone, stop Veto Bachelet.com because the future with her in power could be really dark, really grim for all of us. I mean, for us working at the UN, for our national policies, for our national governments, for our family policies, for our children education, for all these things. It does have a rundown effect. So please be aware of this. This is an important situation we're dealing with right now in the next few months. And yeah, Rocío, any closing remarks? What do you see coming up and ahead of your trip next week? How do you see things coming into place in the next few weeks?
Well, I think that Chris already summarized everything pretty well. Just to add to what he said, that millions of unborn children lives is at stake.
Yeah.
Life and family is at stake. They are on a ballot that the world never gets to cast. And this is our time to put pressure on the decision makers. This is our time to pressure our delegations and the member states to elect, as Chris already said, at least a moderate position, and for us to say something. They silenced us. They silenced the pro-life voice at the UN Human Rights Council. They cannot silence thousands of signatures from people signing the petition. So just my commitment to all the people listening here and signing the petition that we're going to deliver these signatures, and that we'll keep putting pressure and fighting for life, family, and freedom. Thank you.
I could not have said it any better. I could not have closed this amazing conversation any better. Thank you, Rocío. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, everyone watching and joining our campaign, watching from all different countries. We really appreciate your support. We really appreciate your engagement. Stay tuned in the upcoming weeks. Stay informed, and let's keep up the good fight. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you.